First and foremost, welcome to our DevTalk. I'm Gus Oliveira. I'm from Back4App. And here with me, we have somebody that needs no introduction. It's Alex, our architect. You guys have seen him through all of our videos and all of the material. You guys have seen his face. Alex is having a little issue with his camera, so you won't get to see his lovely face today, but don't worry about it. Just go on YouTube if you guys miss him, and he's going to be there to greet you guys. So today we're going to have our dev talk. We're going to talk about, it's going to be a continuation from what we did last time. Last time we did a dev talk where Alex showed everybody how to build a backend using ChatGPT. And today what we're going to be doing is the next step, which is going to be building a front end on ChatGPT so it can use with your Back4App's backend. So Alex is going to guide us along. He's going to show us how it's done. At any time, if you guys have any questions, any comments, please let us know either on the chat window. There's also a Q&A box. So feel free to type away. And then at the end of the demo, we're going to go through the questions and also the questions that some people send me through email. The goal here is for us to be completely 100% interactive. Where Alex is going to be doing everything live. It's not something that he did before. He's going to show you a recording. So things are going to happen. Things may not happen. We're just going to, strap in and go along for the ride. All right. Also, there are two very important videos that I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out. If you guys haven't, I'm going to send you guys the link. One is about unlocking dev mode on ChatGPT. We have a whole video on that, and Alex has the prompts. And also the video of our last dev talk about creating a backend using ChatGPT. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I'll post the link here in the chat window so you guys can check it afterwards. Okay. All right. So without further ado, Alex, on with you, guy.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining. So today, as last time, I don't have any content written, so we are going to go all together trying to get the responses and the code that we need from ChatGPT. So the whole idea is to create the front end for a website that consumes or parse app in Back4App. We're going to go very simple today because last time perhaps I went too far with some complexity added, and this raised quite a lot of questions later on. So I want to be basic, and then we can have another of these webinars and go deeper for those of you who feels the need to. So let me share my screen with you guys, and then we can start. There you go. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see it? Good, guys. Thank you. So here I am at Back4App, where we are going to create a to-do app and try to create the front end for it. So I'm just going to select NoSQL database in Back4App and call this to-do. Create. And in a couple of seconds, we should see our default parse app running. There you go. And while this loads, here I have ChatGPT. I'm using version 4, and I also am a paid customer for ChatGPT. So as I was invited to the beta with the web access. So here in settings, you can see better features, and I have enabled browse with Bing and plugins. Browse with Bing is mainly the ability for ChatGPT to access the web. If you don't have this enabled, don't worry, you can still follow this tutorial. It will get probably to very near solutions to what we're going to see. So I'm going to use version 4. Last time we went with version 3.5, which wasn't really good at the time. So I decided to take this with version 4. But as you can see, we have a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours. So if we go beyond this point, probably I'll have to roll back to version 3.5 so we can continue. So let's check our parse dashboard. and it loaded. So as you can see here, we have our database browser with the role class and user class, which are the full classes for parse. And our cloud code section, perhaps we're going to work in here as well, mostly in the public folder where we can host our files, HTML files, CSS files, any static files, probably. And let's start. So I've been pleasantly surprised with the responses I've been getting from ChatGPT. So in a very high level prompt, I can get quite complex solutions out of the box. So as I said, I didn't try this code first or these prompts first. So we're going to see together how it's going to work. And also here I have my Visual Studio where I opened a folder called website, and it's a totally empty folder, as you can see. And in here, we're going to test out our code. So let's try to do our to-do app with the most basic prompt we can imagine. So write a to-do JavaScript app to run in Chrome. Let's see how this does. Yeah, ChatGPT version 4 is always quite slow to answer. It's always a string, but 3.5 goes way faster than this. So it generated a HTML file and a styles CSS file, and also a app.js file. Let's see if it will give any instructions on how to use these files. I have been using ChatGPT extensively for producing some codes, and while it works quite well, I've got many responses that were incomplete, actually. So it had to do some manual interaction for it to work. So to run this app, create these 3 files in the same directory and open index.html file in Google Chrome. So let's just try this out. So copy code, back to Visual Studio, new file, paste in here, save index.html, also styles CSS, new file, paste, save styles CSS, and last but not least, app.js. Save app.js. Now, if I open index.html file in Chrome, it should just work. So open file, desktop, website, index.html. Hit enter. Oh, it seems to at least get the correct front-end design. So let's try to add some to-dos. Test 1, hit add. Test 2, hit add. Test 3, hit add. Delete test 1, delete test 3. All right, it seems to be working. Now, let's try to integrate this with parse. So back to ChatGPT, I'm going to paste in my keys for this app. And this is not a really good practice. You should never send your keys to a website the way I'm doing, but I just want to copy and paste the code so you can see the capabilities of it. But ideally, you should ask with other keys and app IDs and replace it by yourself in your machine. So never expose the keys for your app. Now, you got to remember, and I always tell you guys this, the way parse was designed, the keys are meant to be exposed. So there is no problem at all to expose your keys, as the security of your apps are mainly done through ACLs or access control lists, or if you come to here, choose these 3 dots, security and class level permissions, or CLPs. This is what protects your app, not the keys. That said, the most you protect your keys, the most you protect your app. So you really don't want to go pasting it around or sharing it with everyone. The most complexity a attacker has to attack your app, the better for you. So once again, the keys are meant to be exposed. You don't have to protect if you don't want, but it's always a good measure to protect if needed. So let's say it again. I'm going to expose mine to ChatGPT. So app settings, security and keys. And from all these keys that we have here, application ID, client key, JavaScript key, and all the other ones, those are meant to be exposed except by the master key. The master key should be protected at all times. You never want your master key in your front end or exposed in any way, because the master key allows you to change the other keys. So if an attacker has the master key, they can do some harm to your app. If you do your app exposing all the other keys except the master key, and protect your app with CLPs and ACLs, that's okay. But with the master key exposed, they can also change ACLs and CLPs and ignore those protections. So never show your master key to anyone. So let's get my application ID and ask ChatGPT to implement the parse JavaScript SDK so I can save this to our newly created app. So let's add the parse SDK in JavaScript to this app. Here is my app ID and my JavaScript key. Once again, you should probably send other texts as these values and then replace it yourself. I'm doing this just so we can speed up things today. Please rewrite the code above to use the web-hosted parse JavaScript SDK and persist data into a class named to-do. Let's see how it goes. As you can see, I'm going very high level here, right? I'm not instructing the solution to ChatGPT in any ways. And this is also something that happens to me from time to time. Even with a good prompt, ChatGPT takes a while to understand, and sometimes it won't understand at all, making me have to refresh the page. And this seems to be something that will happen right now. If it doesn't start responding in like 5 or 6 seconds, probably something went wrong. So let's copy this so we don't lose our prompt and try to refresh. There we go. We generated. Oh, there we go. Oh, it used the parse CDN stored SDK, which is very good because you have always the latest versions published in there. Now, did it? Oh, I thought it would stop. If you are having some big code being produced and the code just stops, you can always tell ChatGPT to continue code and it will. I hope you guys cannot hear it, but there is a construction site very near my house, and they are cutting something right now. Hopefully, it won't impact our webinar. So I'm going to copy the code once again. I'm not checking anything. I'm just pasting it in, and hopefully it will just work. And the way I'm doing this, guys, is mostly how I use ChatGPT on my day-to-day basis. I always try to get the first response it gives to me and test if it works. I don't try to evaluate too much, because I found myself that trying to evaluate the responses it takes more time than just testing. So if you're not compromising any data, any production data, which you shouldn't, by the way, um, just copying it and pasting and testing is much faster approach than trying to read the code, understand what it does, and decide by yourself if it works or not. But once again, never try this in production. So once again, let's go back here, refresh this. Let's inspect, see if everything went well on the console. Parse is not defined. So let's try to add and see how it goes. Test 1. Didn't seem to work. Let's come back here. Yeah, it didn't create the class. So this is probably due to the fact that it's using the parse SDK here, and the app.js is somehow not having any access to it. So let's try to paste in the error and see if it can fix it to me. So back here, the code above produced the following error. Right, so it changed the version to 3.3, which is the latest one. Oops, not this one, this one. Back here. So just change the version. I expect to have the exact same problem. Let's try to put it like this and see if it works. Seems to be working now. So test 1. There you go. And we have a record saved. So if we go back here, refresh our screen. There we go, to-do class with 1 record, test 1. Let's see if it will delete this as well. There we go, removed the object. So it seems to be working. So now that we have a insertion operation running and a delete operation running, let's try to list out all the items that we have. To do that, let's ask ChatGPT to query this class at load and retrieve all the possible values that we have in there. So the whole idea is we're going to create multiple records, and when I first reload the screen, it should display those records to me. So let's add test 1, test 2, test 3, and test 4. Now, if I refresh this screen, as I don't have any onload event running, I expect this list to be empty. So I'm just refreshing it. There, oh, it's actually not. Oh, but it is going to replace to duplicate the records, as you can see here. So it is working in a way that at every reload, it's sending again the objects to be saved in parts, and we don't really want that. So if we just refresh this once again, I have 16 objects. So there we go. We have many number ones, a few less number twos, only 2 number threes, and 2 number fours. We definitely don't want that. So let's tell ChatGPT that this is happening and see if it can fix it. So when I reload the page, the records are being recreated automatically. Please produce code to fix this issue. So it's going to change the add item function. Oh, it already added some onload event to load the records that I already have. I was going to ask Pars to do just that, but anyways. So here we go. Change it in here, paste it in. Once again, I'm not reading anything. I'll just let it go with the flow, see if it works. And I expect it not to create any other objects. So if I refresh this screen here, I have 16 objects. And if I refresh, I should keep with 16. So let's just refresh. Come here, refresh again. And it seems to be solved. Let's add a new one. So test 17. Add it. We've come back here, refresh 17. And if I just refresh all this, 17, and here 17 again. So it seems to be fixed. Now let's add some properties to these. I want for every single item that I have in my to-do class, the ability to set if it was done or not. So let's ask ChatGPT to add a Boolean near to my text in here, so I can check if it's completed or not. So this seems to be working fine. Now let's add a Boolean type to each record that shows if the task, the to-do task is completed or not. In the front end, a checkbox should be displayed near the text for each item. So I can check if a task is completed or not. This should be reflected in the class accordingly. Update the code to match this. Request. Let's see how it goes. But hopefully you can see at this point that in this new scenario of software development that we are seeing, it's much more important for us developers to have the ability to specifically tell in prompt for the AIs to produce what we want and what we need without the need for it to interpret or to decide by itself the route to take. So you should be able to very precisely describe the behaviors that you want your application to have and not focus on the code too much. And by the way, this also reflects my experience with ChatGPT and also with GitHub Copilot so far. The more you can describe the situation where you are and what you're trying to achieve, and the most specific you can be, you can get the best results in less time. Now, I have had a few apps that took me more than a day trying to get to a working prompt. And other ones, when I went very specific, I could reach it in a matter of minutes. But sometimes I have to keep going back and forth with ChatGPT, so it will refine its own solution to match the requests that I'm sending. So let's copy all this. And I actually don't see the checkbox created in the front end. But let's paste it in. Let's see how it goes. Save. Go back here. Refresh. Oh, it actually added. So it added by code. So for test 17, which is our unique one, I'm going to set it to true. I was expecting a response over here. I didn't have any. But let's see in the app how it worked or didn't work. Now, as you see, I click this button, but I don't have anything new in here. It's because I'm using the old schema. So every time you change a class, you really want to fully refresh the page to exhibit the new schema. So there you go, test 17 true. So the code is indeed working. Now, what if I want to host this in Back4App? So many of you have websites that you want to host, and I've seen so many people doing their apps in Back4App, but leaving the website to run somewhere else because they don't really know that we can host the files for free. So all you have to do is go to your app settings, server settings, scroll down all the way to web hosting and custom domains, click settings. And in here, you have to activate your app hosting in Back4App. Now I have to confirm my phone number. So yeah, I won't be able to do that right now. But if you activate this and enter a domain in Back4App, all you have to do is to come here in Cloud Code. Under the functions and web hosting, you have the public folder. In public folder, you can store pretty much any static file. Of course, you cannot upload zip files or video files in here because the size is too big. But HTML files, image files, folder structures, and CSS files, you can all add it in here, and you will be able to render any website using the URL that you get from the custom domain configuration page that we just saw. Excuse me, let me take a sip of my coffee. So now we should probably try to make this look more beautiful and professional. So let's go back to our ChatGPT here and ask it to generate a more colorful and more professional design to it. Sorry for this, guys. I've been speaking so much today. I'm coughing a lot. Rewrite the CSS for this website to look more clean. modern and professional. Try to use fonts of blue whenever you can. There you go. Let's see how it works. Back to Visual Studio, style CSS. I'm just going to paste this in and refresh. Oh, it already looks better. It doesn't really seem too professional to me, but indeed it looks better. So you can also keep on going back and forth, trying to use to refine the prompt so it will get closer to the design that you want. Now, in my personal experience with ChatGPT generating CSS, uh, in the end of the day, it's just easier to use some CSS generation tool or framework instead of asking it to create it from scratch. Not because it can't, but because it takes quite a while for you to describe what you expect from a front-end website to look like. I have to go back and forth telling, change this color, now change this control, now change this button, now make the button round, now make the other text box not round, now change this icon for this specific record. And this takes way too much time than, for instance, using a CSS framework or some CSS generation tool. It's just easier to go that route. Now, if you have the time to spend and to refine the prompts so it can generate it the way you want, it's definitely much possible. But again, in my personal experience with ChatGPT so far, it takes way too much time. You should probably focus on rendering the controls and operating the business logic or the code for your website or app, and leave the CSS part for a tool designed for this purpose if you don't have the time to spend. Now, for instance, let's try to make the delete this text to show in red. So make the delete buttons for the records to render like a red X. Perhaps it will understand what I'm trying to do. I don't expect it to have the character X in that place, but something that resembles a X character. Now let's see if yeah, it's going to use the X character. I didn't want to do that way, but let's try it. Perhaps we can just make it work. To the list, there is the li button. There you go, it's here. And we also generated some documentation in here. Advanced listener, delete item. So let's go back here. So we should probably replace this part of the code. Let's see how it works. Once again, I really don't like using the X character, but yeah, it's not really looking great. I think it's not nice at all. What if we add an image to that? So let's try to find a delete icon. A trash bin is much more beautiful. Perhaps Let's see if it can understand and find the icon itself now that I have web access. This didn't look good at all. Use a trash bin icon from the internet instead. Now, if it was like a month ago, it will probably tell that you cannot, that ChatGPT cannot access the web and check this. But now that I have the web access created, allowed, it will allow me to use things like this. So copy this code, we're going to paste it in. So in the HTML file. So back here, HTML file. Let's add it in here. What else we have got? So we have the delete that is going to go into the JavaScript file. Get this in here. And we have our CSS file as well. Let's see how it works. Much better, huh? It seems to work fine. Now, I really don't like this centered text. I wish it could be near the checkbox. We can also make ChatGPT understand that. So the text for the items are centered. Make it so it appears near the checkbox. So we have to-do list li, which is in here. We also have to-do list li input, which is in here. We have to-do list li button, which is over here. And we have the to-do list li I that is not even present, so let's add that one. And it also gave me some code for the add item in app.js. So add item is here. Hopefully this will be enough. There we go. Now it seems it looks better. I wish the trash bin would be on the right side as it was before, but this is good enough for me. I think it's working quite well. If I check a few of these items, it should reflect the classes. So now I have 4 more with data with checked as true. So 4 more with checked as true. So as you can see, guys, it is working quite well. And most of the times when I have simple apps to create, I try to follow this route instead of even starting it myself. It saves so much time. I always go to start a new project and writing all the code myself when I think the complexity to prompt it to ChatGPT is way higher than just writing the code myself, or when I get a very specific task that I know for a fact that ChatGPT will be stuck for some reason. Like for those of you who followed the last webinar, we found a situation in Node.js where because of the framework characteristics, it would not be possible to retrieve the current user if you didn't put a specific line of code, which is enable unsafe current user. And ChatGPT just could not find that solution. We tried for a few minutes and it would just not work. Perhaps today with the web access, it would, but at that time it didn't. So when I start to get responses like that, when I spend more time trying to explain what I want than actually writing the code myself, I just go myself. But for like 60 to 70% of my code producing today, I tried ChatGPT first, and I'm amazed by how good this tool has been and for the quality of the code it has been producing to me. Now, last time, some of you asked about GitHub Copilot, which is also very good and which is also paid. And my opinion on these both tools is if you're going to pay for an AI tool like ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot, ChatGPT is just better because it will understand your prompt and get answers on practically any topic, while GitHub Copilot is aimed for developers only. So it can produce very good code, but you're limited to programming with GitHub Copilot. While with ChatGPT, you can use it very well for programming, and you can also use for other things. So for instance, I always use ChatGPT to get recipes so I can cook with what I have in my fridge. I just tell them a list of what I get, and it will produce a step-by-step recipe for me. So if you're going to pay for this, I think your money is better spent on ChatGPT than on GitHub Copilot. That said, Google just released out a new version of Bard, which some people are saying it's very good. Now, I live in Brazil, and that's not available in Brazil right now, so I couldn't test it myself. But for those of you who live outside of Brazil and in a country that it is allowed to use Google Bard, I really recommend you to use it and test it, mostly because Google has been putting a lot of effort trying to reach what ChatGPT has done, or what OpenAI has done with ChatGPT. So I expect it to be quite good, if not now, at least in the near future. And well, guys, this is pretty much what I have to show you for today. I don't want to go too far once again, because last time we got so technical. I really want to get basic so I can get you started on trying out ChatGPT with Back4App. And Gus, I really think we could open up for questions now. What do you think?
Yeah, that's perfect, Alex. We have some great questions here, not only from our chat window, but from a Q&A window and also on email. To get started, let's get some of the questions here that we have in the chat window. Jaden asked, is there a way to make a Docker image in Back4App with Dockerfile?
Well, hey, Jaden. Well, depends on what you're trying to achieve. If what you want is to run a Docker image in Back4App containers, well, we have a video on the channel that shows exactly this. We use the Docker image as a base image, and then we create a Docker file that consumes that image and publish it to Back4App containers using the Docker Hub. So we publish the image to Docker Hub, use that image in a Docker file, and then publish the Docker file to Back4App containers. It will work, and we have a video on the channel about this, specifically about this. And this allows you to use practically any image that you want, but we have a limitation at this point. Some images have built-in the ports, multiple ports exposed, and Back4App containers only allows for the exposure of one port. So even if in your Docker file you expose just one port, as the image exposes more than one, it will not work in Back4App containers. In this case, your only solution at this point is to recreate the image yourself with the software that you want. But we have people working on this, so in the near future, I expect you to be able to publish such an image in Back4App containers as well. But yes, you can, and once again, depends on what you're trying to achieve.
All right, great. Debbie Sheet asked, do we need to be in paid version? Assuming it's in a paid version of ChatGPT to do what you just demonstrated to us?
No, you don't have. You have the free tier of ChatGPT that allows you to do pretty much everything that I did. Now, if you need to have web access, I guess that you need to be in a paid plan or at least a beta user. But for what I've done so far, and for most of the tasks, actually, if you stay in the free plans limitations, you really don't have to pay. We also have a video on the channel, and I can show it to you right here. We have a ChatGPT plugin for Visual Studio that you can install and start using it from here instead of the ChatGPT window. And you don't have to pay anything for this. You just have to sign in with an account, and you'll be able to produce code directly from here, which makes it easier to copy and paste than going to the website. I just like to go to the website for the presentations, but I mostly use it from here. And I don't have my my paid plan set up here at all. So you can just use from here for free, as long as you respect the number of calls that you have. So you really don't have to pay to use it.
Okay, perfect. And Alex is asking, are you using Ubuntu?
Not on this machine. This is a Mac. I'm running Mac OS, but I use mostly Ubuntu for my daily basis work. I really like the Ubuntu distribution, and I think it makes Linux really accessible to everyone. So I really like Ubuntu virtual machines. Most of my virtual machines and Docker containers run Ubuntu, and I use that by quite a lot because I really, really like it.
All right. Excuse me. And Pablo wants to know, what would be the prompt to ask ChatGPT to rewrite one after_save trigger that we have in parse version 2 to the parse version 3 syntax?
Oh, that's quite a good question. Well, when I have to translate code, I try to give it some context so it knows how it will deal with the code that you're sent. And then I'll ask it in the specific syntax that you want. We can just try this out, actually. Let me go back to parse here. And if you go to the Cloud Code section, in here we have the main.js file with two different syntaxes. So we have parse server 3.x is this syntax here, and 2.x is this syntax here. Basically, what changes is 2.x is response success hello world, and the parse server 3.x is return a hello world. So we can just try to get this code, for instance, and make it translated. I have successfully been using ChatGPT to translate code even between languages. So I have a Java algorithm that is really complex and it works. So I send to ChatGPT and ask it, for instance, in Swift, and most of the times it will get it right. So let's try out this one here. Copy. Open a new chat. And as always, I want to give it some context. So I have an app in better than this, a parse app in Back4App that runs parse 2.x and has the following cloud code. There you go. Rewrite the code above so it will work in parse 3.x. So as you can see, I'm giving some context. I'm telling you I'm using this code comes from a parse app, so it will understand the syntax that I want. I'm specifically telling I'm running 2.x, and perhaps I really should go and tell a parse version in here instead. So let's cancel this. I'll continue anyway. Let's choose a parse version. Some settings here. Let's say I'm using 2.84. 2.84. And let's 3.3.0. I think this is a version. So let's actually get 450. 450. What I expect is to change the response success to return, and it should work. There you go, return hello world. So as long as you give it a good context, it will understand your code and translate it correctly.
All right, great, Alex. Now, Angelo is asking, is it possible to use ChatGPT on a framework like React Native?
Yes, we have lots of apps created in React Native and in Flutter and many other frameworks using ChatGPT and Parse. So it produces really good code. So I really recommend that you try. We have lots of success doing that.
All right. And Oliver wants to know, could you use Back4App as a data source for a ChatGPT plugin? If so, how would authentication work? Maybe an idea for the next DevTalk.
Hey, Oliver, this is also a very good question, and thank you for the suggestion. I really like it. Now, ChatGPT can access the web, so I assume it can make requests to Back4App, and we can actually try that out right now. But before doing that, I'm not really sure about plugins, because as long as I tried plugins, and I can show you that right now. So if you choose ChatGPT 4 and go to plugins, here I have my plugin list in the plugin store. It takes a while to load. So as you can see here, and I didn't come to this screen regularly, so I don't know what's going on and what they are publishing out. But last time I checked, most of the plugins available were about some kind of data collection. So for instance, have Kayak if you want to use their data and their APIs, but I didn't see anything specifically tailored for gathering data from a framework such as Parse. So I assume it is possible, but not through a plugin at this time. We would have to code a plugin to enable that, or try a different approach, which I think it would be simpler, which is sending a app ID and a REST API key to ChatGPT and ask it to read that data. We can try this right now, actually. So for instance, if we just created to-do class, and we have a few records in there. Now, if we go to our API and go to our console, in here you can query our classes. So we're going to make a HTTP GET to classes /to-do. And if I just send query, it will retrieve all my results from my to-do class. Now, if we scroll all the way down, we have this export to curl command that you can copy and paste. So let's copy. Oops. Close. Go back to Visual Studio, open a terminal, and in here I'm going just to paste that in, and it should retrieve all those records. So as you can see, it returned in JSON format all my records. Now let's ask ChatGPT to consume this data. So ChatGPT version 4 with browse enabled. Is it okay? So use the following command to retrieve data and tell me how many records there are in my to-do class in this Parse app. So it can guide me. It didn't actually get the response to me. So it will only get internet to provide text-based responses, it will not actually bring my data in here the way I expected it to. But perhaps sometime soon they will provide something like this, as it will probably be very good to developers to have that. Now, it said it cannot run the command to gather the data, but it can provide a text-based response. What would it do if I just paste in the response into a website and ask it to read from that website? Perhaps that would be a solution. Not really sure. We would have to test that out. But as I have to validate my telephone, this is a new account I just created. It won't be working right now, but I'm going to try this out. And if it works, I'll make a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, that like Oliver said, that's also a great subject for DevTalk. Maybe we'll do that next DevTalk for next month. Alex, now Prince Raj wants to know, can we use custom domain in Back4App containers?
I guess you can't. What you can do is to redirect your domain to the domain that you have in Back4App containers through a CNAME appointment. If you go, for instance, to dashboard containers, I have a few apps in here. No, actually, I don't. I have been deleting. Oh, I don't have any GitHub repo. Perhaps in my other account, just 1 second, let me open that up. So backforapp.com. Login. There you go. Containers. Now here I do have some apps. So here you have the domain that Back4Apps give to you. If you expand this, and if you CNAME a record to this domain from your domain, I'm pretty sure it will work. Now here in the setting, this is all still in development, so this is changing all the time. But I really don't see anything related to custom domains here, except for the fact that you can point a CNAME to this domain here, and it will work.
All right, Alex, now Efezino wants to know, is it possible to use the parse live query on a Node.js backend?
As far as I know, yes. All you have to do is to enable the classes that you want to access through live queries. Let me do that really quickly here. To do. So I have to go to App Settings, Server Settings, scroll down to the server URL and live query. So click Settings. Here you have to activate your Back4App subdomain. Once again, I have to change my phone number to do that and activate live query. Here you have to check the classes that you want to subscribe to. In my case, it would be to do, and save. And from your Node.js backend, you have to subscribe to the to-do class events, and it will pop up for the actions that happen in that class. I use that quite a lot in my machine, so I really assume it would work in a server environment as long as the firewall for your environment allows for WebSockets.
Okay, and now Bodan wants to know, what about writing tests with ChatGPT?
ChatGPT has been awesome to write test cases for me as well. I use it all the time. Perhaps not for this, but if we have a cloud code function that we can get one from, for instance, the cloud code section of the part documentation, let's paste in some cloud code function in there and see how it will write the test. So create a new chat, ChatGPT-4. I have a parse app in Back4App with the following cloud code function. Write a test case for that function. in Node.js. There we go. It will also give you instructions, but you want to see something really cool. Let's just, let's stop generating. Check this out. I use this a lot as well. Generate documentation for that function, cloud code function. It will give you all the parameters, describe the return value, how to use it, and even some source code for you to test. So every time I implement a new cloud code function, I generate documentation like this, which is beautiful. It works 99% of the times. And all you have to do is to copy and paste it into your documentation software, or depending on what you are documenting. This has the I totally forgot the name, the .md, the markdown syntax. So you can ask it to export in markdown. So if you're using, for instance, GitHub to write the documentation for your software, you can just copy and paste in there and it will just work. So it's a super fast way to document the cloud code part of your application. And it also works for Frontend as well.
Great. And Oliver, he sent the message saying that he wanted to clarify that when he was talking about if you use Back4App as a data source for ChatGPT plugin, he meant as if you could use it for a custom plugin.
Okay, so I subscribed to become a plugin developer, but this has been a while and they didn't answer it to me yet, so I guess I wasn't approved yet. But I do intend to generate a Back4App plugin for ChatGPT, and as soon as they release my plugin developer account, I will start working on that because we have so many ideas on what we can do with ChatGPT and Back4App together. But thanks for the suggestions.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. And one last question here, because we're running out of time, Alex. Jaden wanted to ask again, similar to Prince Roger's inquiry about if you can use custom domain in Back4App containers. Can Back4App be used as a standalone server with DNS forwarding using Bent9 to a custom domain, for example, example.com, to self-host a commercial website?
Oh, that's quite a complex question. So, self-hosted conversion. Well, yes. You got to understand, Jadon, that Back4App, the parse app is a different product than the Back4App containers. So if you are in the Back4App parse product, you can use custom domains, and then using Bind9 would probably work. We have clients which has custom domain set, and we even have some clients that want to host their certificates with us. So practically anything is possible with this product, the parse app product. But for the containers itself, as it's a brand new product and we are working on the features that users want the most, at the moment, I understand it's not possible, and it won't be in the near future, but it is in our radar. We have people asking for this, and we will try to develop it as soon as we get the chance. as our developing power is limited, and we have to focus on the features that most users want and need. So for this moment, Back4App containers, I assume it will not work.
All right, perfect. Well, we have gone 8 minutes past our time. So once again, thank you everybody for all of your questions, for taking part in the event today. As always, it's awesome talking to you guys, getting your questions, seeing exactly, what you guys are looking for, what troubles you have, and how can we as a platform help your daily lives, your development process easier. So once again, thank you very much for taking part in our Dev Talk. I just gave Jaden a quick spoiler alert that we are working on some awesome releases for Back4App containers. It's in homologation right now, so we should have that out very soon. So be on the lookout for that. And Alex, thank you again for your time and for this awesome Dev Talk. And I can't wait to talk to you guys again. If anything comes up after the event, if you guys have any questions that you didn't get to ask here, please feel free to send me an email, send Alex an email, reach out to us on any of our social media, especially on Twitter. And we look forward to hearing from you guys again and talk to you guys soon.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. It's always so awesome talking to you. The response of you have been amazing and really motivated me to keep going. So thank you for that. If you don't follow our YouTube channel yet, please go there, follow, because we have new content every single day. And be sure to follow and subscribe so you can get help us to spread the word.